Module 8, Perfect Competition. Why it matters. Perfect competition. Market structure influences how firms behave. The model of perfect competition has certain ideal features that you will learn and apply to other markets. Tomatoes and any other near identical product of the same type cost and about the same from a farmer's market as from a roadside vegetable stand. Perfect competition. Farmers face competition from thousands of others because they sell an identical product. It's relatively easy for farmers to leave the marketplace for another crop. All businesses face two realities. No one is required to buy their products, and even customers who might want those products may buy them from other businesses instead. Firms that operate in perfectly competitive markets face this reality. What is perfect competition? Conditions of perfect competition. The industry has many firms and many customers. All firms produce identical products. Sellers and buyers have all relevant information to make rational decisions about the product being bought and sold. Firms can enter and leave the market without any restrictions. A perfectly competitive firm is called a price taker because the pressure of competing firms forces them to accept the prevailing equilibrium price in the market. Market price and perfect competition. The market price is determined solely by supply and demand in the entire market and not the individual farmer. If a firm in a perfectly competitive market raises the price of its product, it will lose all of its sales to competitors. A perfectly competitive firm faces a horizontal demand curve at the market price. Profit maximization in a perfectly competitive market. A perfectly competitive firm has only one major decision to make, namely what quantity to produce. Profits equal total revenue minus total cost. You could think of total revenue as price times quantity produced, and total cost as average total cost that is, times the quantity produced. That will also give you profit. A perfectly competitive firm must accept the price for its output as determined by the product's market demand and supply. Can't change the price. The perfectly competitive firm can choose to sell any quantity of output at exactly the same price. Therefore, the firm faces a perfectly elastic demand curve for its product. Buyers are willing to buy any number of units of output from the firm at the market price. When the firm chooses what quantity to produce, the quantity will determine the firm's total revenue, total costs, and level of profits. Determining the highest profit by comparing total revenue and total cost. A perfectly competitive firm can sell as large a quantity as it wishes as long as it accepts the prevailing market price. Total revenue is going to increase as the firm sells more. Consider the case of a small farmer who produces raspberries and sells them for $4 a pack, frozen. So you can see the quantity, the total revenue as it goes up as they sell more. The total cost is also going up as it sells more. And then you can look at the profit column and see where's the highest profit, and it looks to be somewhere between 70 and 80 as a quantity. Comparing marginal revenue, marginal costs. Firms often do not have the necessary data they need to draw a complete total cost curve for all levels of production. Firms experiment with costs and profits through production or cutting production. Every time one more unit is sold, the firm sells one more unit and revenue goes up by an equal amount as the market price. Every time the firm sells a pack of frozen raspberries, the firm's revenue increases by $4. The profit maximizing rule. Notice that the marginal revenue does not change as the firm produces more. The price is determined by supply and demand and does not change as the farmer produces more. Since a perfectly competitive firm is a price taker, it can sell whatever quantity it wishes at the market-determined price. So marginal cost is equal to the change in total cost divided by the change in quantity. The profit maximizing rule for a perfectly competitive firm is to produce where the level of output, or produce at that level of output, where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Calculating profits and losses. A firm's profit margin is the average profit, or the relationship between price and average total cost. If a firm charges higher than average cost, the firm's profit margin is positive and it's earning economic profits. If a firm charges lower than the average cost, the firm's profit margin is negative and it's suffering economic losses. So take a look at this. Here we see average cost curves. Marginal revenue is the price that's coming from the market, and we can compare at a point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, which is E, if the firm is making a profit or not, by comparing where average cost is relative to the price it's charging. So in A, price is above the average cost at that point that quantity where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, which is E, so there's a profit margin. In B, since price is equal to average cost at E, they're just breaking even. Profits and losses with the average cost curve. The difference between total revenues and total costs is profits. In figure 1b, the price has fallen to $2.75 for a pack of raspberries. The perfectly competitive firm will choose the level of output where price equals marginal revenue, which equals marginal cost. At this price and output level, the price the firm receives is exactly equal to the average cost of production. This is called the break-even point since the profit margin is 0. Here we see when average costs are below what the price is. When the price is below average cost. So you can see that there is a loss. So you look and see where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, which is E. That's the quantity. At that quantity, you can see that average cost is higher than the price that's being charged. So that would be their loss. The shutdown point. A firm cannot avoid losses by shutting down and not producing because shutting down can reduce variable cost to 0. In the short run, however, the firm has already committed to pay its fixed cost. The firm produces a quantity of 0. It would still make losses because it would still need to pay for its fixed costs. Should a firm continue producing or shut down if it's experiencing losses in the short run? For example, a yoga center has signed a contract to rent space that costs $10,000 per month. The yoga center's marginal cost for hiring yoga teachers is $15,000 per month. If the center were to shut down, it would still pay rent, but it wouldn't pay for the hired labor. The shutdown point, Yoga Center 1. Should the yoga center shut down now or later? Scenario 1. If the center shuts down now, revenues are 0, but it will not incur any variable costs and would only need to pay fixed costs of $10,000. Profit equals total revenue minus fixed cost plus variable cost, so profit is equal to 0 minus $10,000. That's a minus $10,000, so that's a loss of $10,000. Shutdown for Yoga Center 2. Should the yoga center shut down now or later? Scenario 2. The center earns revenues of $10,000 and variable costs are $15,000. The center should shut down now. Profit equals $12,000 minus $10,000 plus $15,000. There's a loss of $13,000. Shut down Yoga Center 3. Should the yoga center shut down now or later? In this scenario, the center earns revenue of $20,000 and variable costs are $15,000. The center should continue to do business. It's minimizing its losses by continuing to produce. And the key is it's because it's covering its variable costs. Entry and exit decisions in the long run. The line between the short run and the long run cannot be defined. In the short run, firms cannot change the usage of fixed inputs. In the long run, the firm can adjust all factors of production. When businesses are making profit in the short run, they have incentive to expand. When new firms come into an industry in response to high profits, it's called entry. If businesses are making losses in the short run, they will limp along or shut down. If businesses are making losses in the long run, they will downsize, reduce their capital stock, or shut down completely. When firms leave an industry due to a pattern of losses, this is called exit. How entry and exit lead to 0 profits in the long run. A perfectly competitive firm can't alone affect the market price. A combination of many firms entering and exiting the market will affect the overall supply in the market. A shift in supply for the market as a whole will affect the market price. Entry and exit to and from the market are the driving forces behind a process that in the long run pushes the price down to minimum average total costs so that all firms are earning a 0 profit. The long run equilibrium is where all firms earn 0 economic profits, producing the output level. Efficiency in perfectly competitive markets. Profit-maximizing firms in perfectly competitive markets, when combined with utility-maximizing consumers, result in quantities of outputs of goods and services that demonstrate productive and allocative efficiency. Remember, productive efficiency means producing at the lowest possible cost, i.e. producing without waste. Goods are being produced and sold at the lowest possible average cost. Allocative efficiency means that when the mix of goods being produced represents the mix that society most desires. Businesses enter and exit and supply what is being demanded. Continuing along, a perfectly competitive market in the long run will feature both productive and allocative efficiency. Economists use efficiency in a specific sense. It is not a synonym for desirable in every way. Market structures like monopoly, monopolistic competition, oligopoly are more frequently observed in the real world than perfect competition. Quick review. What are the conditions and implications of a perfectly competitive market? What are the profits and costs by comparing total revenue and total cost? Using marginal revenue and marginal cost, how do you find the level of output that will maximize the firm's profits? What is a firm's profit margin? Using the average cost curve, how do you calculate the firm's profits and losses? More quick review. What is a firm's break-even point? When should a firm continue to produce in the short run, or at which point should it shut down? How does entry and exit lead to zero profits in the long run? Why are perfectly competitive firms both productively efficient and allocatively efficient? Compare the model of perfect competition to real-world markets. And that is all.